Good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 here, Election Day on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this very hour, Michael Whatley, chairman of the Republican National Committee. We're going to talk to him about voter turnout across the country, in particular in those swing states, and the election integrity issues that he is facing today. The Republicans very active right now to push back against some of the craziness we're already seeing in all of these states across the country. Updates on that coming up. Chris Bedford joins us at 4:30. He's the D.C. correspondent for The Blaze. We talked to him about what he's watching today in this election and the fact that D.C. is boarding up in anticipation of some result. What could it be? You think Republicans are going to smash McDonald's? You think they're going to throw a rock through the potbelly? I don't think so. David Strom will be here at 5:30. He's with Hot Air. We talk Election Day with him, and we talk with you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Do you have any family members in a swing state? I do. I've got some family members in Pennsylvania. This morning, my first call was to them, hey, have you voted yet? Have you voted yet? What are you doing? Are you voting? What are you up to? My brother said, I'm voting. I'm standing in line. All right, relax. He was standing in line this morning. He gave me a good report. He said that in line, and his dear wife, by the way, just had a beautiful baby. And I was wondering, but that's still not an excuse. You had to get out and vote. She did. She went a little bit later. She got out there and voted. They're Election Day voters. They decided to go today. And just wonderful people. And my brother tells me, he said, the line is 2-to-1 men. 2 men for every woman in line. And this is not too far outside of Philadelphia, the suburbs outside Philadelphia. And that was encouraging. That was a really encouraging sign. And we've seen a bunch of these reports today that it is quite a few men showing up at polls, in particular in these swing states. I don't know what you're seeing out there or if you've got contacts on this, but I'd love to take your calls today on Election Day just to kind of talk through what we're all watching, because we're all trying to read the tea leaves, aren't we? Just keep an eye on all the various numbers to get a sense of which way this thing is headed. Again, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Obviously, here on this program, given where we are, here in the nation's capital and with a DMV audience, we've been very focused on what's going on in Virginia, not least of all because President Trump seems to be of the opinion that it's winnable, potentially. It was just in the last few days that the Trump campaign had determined that they had a better chance than 2 percentage points. They were 2 percentage points off of Kamala Harris in their view. And that, of course, led to President Trump arriving in Virginia this past Saturday, rallying there. And you've seen, Speaker Johnson take to the state yesterday. There's a lot of effort that's been put into Virginia in addition to all of the swing states. And some numbers that I'm hearing today based on what's going on in the Commonwealth. One thing that's kind of interesting is that Northern Virginia polling places are reportedly quiet. Has that been your experience? Did you vote today? Are you an Election Day voter in Northern Virginia? I'm hearing that places like Fairfax County and Arlington, all the Northern Virginia locations, have basically pretty quiet polling places today. And which leads you to obviously wonder what's going on with Republican-heavy districts across the Commonwealth. And a number that I've heard today is going into last night, the early vote in Virginia showed President Trump trailing Kamala Harris by 9 points in one GOP model. 9 points, which is a great place to be if you're a Republican, because in the early vote, Republicans aren't usually well represented. So if you're just 9 points back at the conclusion of the early vote, well, you're off to a great start. So what does that mean for Election Day? Well, Christian Hines, who we've had on this program a lot, he's a Republican, he's an election modeler, and he issued his final projections last night on Virginia, and his final projection was that Kamala Harris is set to win Virginia by what he says is a razor-thin margin of 4.75%. Very, very close for Virginia, a place that Joe Biden won by 10 points, 4.75%. But here's the updated number I've heard today. GOP modelers now believe that President Trump is, as of 1:30 this afternoon, that's just an hour and a half ago, is now 4 points back on Kamala Harris. Not 4.75, not 9 as it was last night, but just 4 points back at this hour. Kind of interesting. And here's what Republican strategists are waiting for. Here's what the Trump campaign is waiting for the workday to conclude. When 4 o'clock rolls around, when 5 o'clock rolls around, what do Republican voters who've been at work and have not yet cast their ballots in the early vote do? Do they go to the polls? Do we see a massive turnout coming up in the afternoon today, Election Day, to help push President Trump even closer to a victory here? And not just President Trump, but all the other Republicans down ballot. Hung Cao, Derek Anderson, all of them. We'll see. We'll see. But one of the other things, and we'll be covering this throughout the evening tonight. I'll be right here with you at the conclusion of Mark Levin's excellent program. You'll be able to hear me starting at 9 o'clock tonight. We're going to take you through the evening live here on WMAL. You know how in certain sports towns people will flip the TV on, but they'll mute the television and then they'll listen to the radio for its coverage? I'd ask you to consider doing that tonight. If you're interested in having a visual, I get it. People like looking at maps, seeing numbers come in. You can do that. Perhaps consider telling your smart speaker to play WMAL tonight as you do. Maybe keep that TV turned down and have us turned up. We're going to be bringing in a lot of great guests, a lot of analysis. We're going to try and dip in live to the various speeches and events that are taking place around the country and give you a minute-by-minute breakdown of how the polls are closing, what we're seeing, and what they mean. And some of that data we're going to get soon, by the way, and we don't have to wait for all these polls to close. You're going to start getting, this is the way it happens every election. There is exit polling going on right now. Media organizations, they're doing exit polling at all of these important battleground states in particular across the country. And when they're talking to people, they're not just taking down who did you vote for, they're also getting sentiment data, meaning are you satisfied with the state of the country, the direction of the country? Are you upset with the status quo? Where are you on that? And that kind of data does not wait for polls to close. Media organizations withhold their actual candidate support until the polls close. The theory being that the media doesn't want to influence the outcome of the election, so they won't release that exit poll data specifically. But sentiment data, we'll get that. That's coming up here. I know CNN's been forecasting a 5 o'clock release on some of that. So we're going to have sentiment data coming up in these next few hours that'll start to give us a real indication of where the country's headed. And in fact, in 2016, for those of you who paid attention really closely, you'll have noticed that the sentiment data was the thing that gave away that Donald Trump was headed for victory. Before we even saw exit polling showing that people supported Trump, what did we see in the sentiment? They hated the status quo. They hated what was happening in the country. And that would have been Barack Obama's presidency and the continuation of that presidency in Hillary Clinton. They didn't like it. And, of course, that manifested itself in a big vote for Donald Trump. So there's quite a bit going on here, and we're going to, again, sort through all this data as it's coming in. We're seeing good turnout today. The Trump campaign is projecting an air of confidence today as they do their various interviews. I saw Caroline Leavitt is out there representing the Trump campaign saying some interesting things. She says that the male turnout is up. A lot of men are showing up on Election Day. They're watching across the country. They say female turnout is down. Caroline Leavitt reminding viewers of the same thing that I've been saying to listeners, which is, the media has decontextualized the female vote in the United States. They keep saying, oh, well, they're a bigger percentage of the early vote. Yeah, that's true, but they're still down from 2020. The percentage of the early vote that was done by women is still smaller than it was in 2020. It's not bigger. It's not bigger. And so they're trying to make this a big referendum on, women love abortion so much that they're all out voting for it. That's not what's happening. That's not. Not if you compare it against 2020. That's not the case. And and the other piece here is the urban vote is down. And when you hear that, what they're talking about is Democrats. City dwellers are down. And they're also saying that broadly, you're seeing a lot of data indicating that the black vote is down. And that is a meaningful thing to hear because of the high percentage of black Americans who vote for Democrats each cycle. So if that is down, that is bad news for Democrats. This is why they've been going absolutely crazy in North Carolina. They're so worried about the state of the black vote in North Carolina for fear that it is either not turning out, which it hasn't been in the early vote, not by the same numbers as it has in the past, or is voting for Trump. So there's a lot of, I would say, very positive dynamics going on. It doesn't mean this thing's a fait accompli. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. And if you've got a family member in a swing state, if you've got a family member in any state, heck, if you're in Washington, D.C., get your butt out to the polls and register your opposition to the regime. Send that message. Today's the day. It's election day. Let's go to the phones here. I've got Martha calling in from Haymarket now on line 6. Martha, please lead us off here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Martha, Haymarket, line 6. Here she is. You got her, Dave? No, we're trying to. Is the board not calling her up? Let's see. Stand by for Martha. Martha, you hold in there. We're trying. Any luck? No. There we go. Okay. Hey, Martha, you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Great, Martha. Go for it.
Okay, great. Hey, Vince, love you. Love your show.
Thank you.
We had a gentleman this morning out in Haymarket at, I won't say which precinct, but it's a Republican 55-45 roughly precinct. And early this morning, a gentleman passed the Democrat table, declined their ballot, walked up to our table, asked for our ballot, and said, I need a little help on what to do once I get inside because I haven't voted in 40 years. And my daughter and I looked at him kind of funny. We said, 4 years? And he said, no, 40. I can't really remember what to do once I get in there.
Wow. 40 years.
Yeah.
And what did he say
40.
What brought him out?
40.
Why after 4 decades did he come to the polls?
So, I didn't want to stop him from voting. And so I said, you know what, when you're done, I would like to interview you. Could you please stop? And so he came out, and actually, first thing he said was, I thought about it. It's actually 36 years. And I said, okay, that's great. But what brought you out this time? And he hesitated, and he goes, I'm going to decline to answer that. And I have my suspicions of what I think it is as a parent, but, he didn't want to say.
40 years. But you got the impression that he's supporting Trump? Did you have any indication?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Oh, okay.
Because he walked past the Democrat table. They tried to give him, they said, you want a Democrat ballot?
Got it.
No. He came to us, asked for the Republican sample ballot, and then asked for help, advice on, what to do once you
Right. Okay, I'm with you now. I'm following. I'm tracking. Martha, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I wonder, and so that's one of the pieces, that's anecdotal, of course, but that's one of the pieces that the Republicans have been pointing to, which is low propensity voters. 0 out of 4 voters is sometimes how they refer to them, meaning the last 4 elections, no votes whatsoever. This guy's 0 out of a lot more than that, and he showed up.
Oh, this guy's not even on the radar. This guy. So who knows how many of them are not even on the radar.
All right, Martha. Thank you.
Yeah,
A voter for Trump who hasn't voted in almost 40 years. How about that? Let's see here. I've got Ellen calling in from Falls Church now, line 7. Ellen, good afternoon to you. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I just wanted to give you 2 data points for what it's worth. I voted this morning at 10:30. My neighborhood's predominantly white. Very low turnout. Very Democrat. Solid Democrat. There was only 400 votes cast by about 11 a.m. Just left Bailey's Crossroad, Colmore area, which is close. Really high turnout. Predominantly, a lot of Muslim, Asian, and Hispanic people showing up, and they happily took the Republican ballot. Happily took it. Very friendly.
Yes.
So my friend and I, who were working for the last 3 hours, were pretty encouraged by what we saw.
Interesting. So I used to live in Bailey's Crossroads at one point. I lived in one of the high rises there, and it was the entire building was Muslim except for me. It was the entire building. In fact, I found out later, I think Corey lived there at the same time. We didn't know each other, so we were the only 2 white dudes who lived in the whole building. But I was wondering, when you said Bailey's Crossroads, what does that look like? And it turns out it's a lot of Republican turnout, huh?
Well, I don't know. Again, we don't ask, but just friendly people. And, we were kind of in a gauntlet type line, and they were handing out Democrat ballots and Republicans, but a lot of them took the Republican ballots. And, now that's not an indication that they're going to vote that way.
Yeah.
But just sort of your general sense was, we both felt kind of positively. And
well, it's a good indication.
Other people were saying that one of the regulars there, he goes, I've been voting here for 40 years. I've never seen any turnout like this before. Now, I don't know whether he was Democrat or Republican, but this was just some older dude who was just saying, I've never seen any turnout like this before in all the years I've been voting here.
Wow.
So if you go on that basis alone, and then contrast that to the morning vote that I took,
yes,
where the very low turnout would in what I think to be a very solidly Democrat precinct, those two things were kind of encouraging.
Kind of fascinating.
For what it's worth.
All right, Ellen, thank you. I mean, this is what we have to go by. We're sort of, again, we're navigating through a lot of anecdotal evidence and just kind of looking at who's actually showing up to try and figure out how's this thing going to turn out. Stay with me. I've got more for you and more of your calls.
Hey, Vince, how's it going? It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Sean.
Just a couple points about today. I voted a couple weeks ago, so I've just been sitting back reading tea leaves and, connecting thread on a board on my wall, and things are looking pretty good right now. I want to temper my expectations, but, I see we're up 1 million in Florida right now. I mean, just insane, doing a lot better. One thing I just want to draw attention to, in Virginia, I don't know if Trump's going to win. My gut says he's probably not, which is fine, as long as he pulls off Pennsylvania. But people have to remember they still got to get out and vote for the down ballot stuff. Derek Anderson, we got to make sure he beats Vindman. We don't want that carpetbagger in our state.
Vindman doesn't even know what district he's in. Take a listen to what he said last night. 11. He thought he's in the 7th. Listen to him.
When I campaign, I've campaigned in every corner of the 11th district.
Well, you're in the wrong district then, buddy. You're in the wrong district. And boy, does that guy not deserve at all to be in Congress. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, Derek Anderson making a good run. It could determine the control of the House of Representatives. A lot of big things happening today. Michael Whatley, chairman of the RNC, joins us next to discuss all of them. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 3:36 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, Election Day, where we're trying to make sense of the news. Coming up, Chris Bedford joins us from The Blaze at 4:30, David Strom from Hot Air at 5:30, and you at 888-630-9625, 888-630 WMAL. Say that again? Okay. I just got a note from Corey. The RNC has just stood us up. How fun is that? Well, it's a busy day today. It's a very busy day today. Here's hoping we can get some updates from them either way. But Michael Whatley is consumed right now with voter turnout and election integrity issues. And I got to say, he's got a lot on his plate. So we'll bring you updates as we can. In fact, as far as Michael Whatley is concerned, let me just start with what he had to deal with this morning. They had early morning shenanigans in Pennsylvania right away. Michael Whatley, first thing this morning, as people were still rubbing the gunk out of their eyes, he tweeted, early this morning, we learned that Republican poll watchers in Philadelphia, York, Westmoreland, Allegheny, Lehigh, Cambria, Wyoming, and Lackawanna counties were being turned away. Republican poll watchers were being turned away in all of those counties. Whatley said this morning that we deployed our roving attorneys, engaged with local officials, and can now report that all Republican poll watchers have been let into the building. We will keep fighting, keep winning, and keep sharing updates. So they an early morning legal victory there as the RNC had to fight back against a blockade on some Republican poll watchers in all of these counties. They were able to get everybody in. They said, hey, we're watching. And in fact, we're filing litigation. They said, whoa, we'll let everybody in. No big deal. So they let everybody in. Why did it take that? Why did it take the RNC coming in order to make that happen? But credit to the RNC for achieving that victory this morning. Also, we're keeping an eye on what happened in Pennsylvania's Cambria County today. They had, here we go again, ballot counting machines went down for a time today in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Now, that county, I just checked, it went for Donald Trump by 37 points in 2020. It may not come as a surprise to you. and the voters there weren't able to put their ballots through the counting machines. You fill out the ballot, have the machine count it, and the machines weren't working. Oh, no. What happened? The Pennsylvania Department of State posted the following on X this morning at 9:45 in the morning. Quote, the Department of State is in contact with county officials in Cambria County. Voters are continuing to vote by paper ballot in accordance with normal operations, while the county resolves the issue with in-precinct scanning. We're working with the county to resolve this technical matter and remain committed to ensuring a free, fair, safe, and secure election, end quote. After this error, county officials had sent a request into the Court of Common Pleas to have the voting hours extended there, and that is indeed the case. So while much of the state is going to be closing at 8 p.m., Cambria County now will have 2 extra hours of voting tonight from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So that's an important feature there, but I'm concerned about, just this is election day. How much time did you have to prepare for this? And it's a reminder, by the way, so long as we have these early voting periods, you should probably do it then. Because if you're at all concerned about shenanigans taking place with Republican votes, where do you think those shenanigans would be best targeted? If you were a Democrat operative, what day of the year would you target for those shenanigans? It'd be Election Day. It'd be Election Day where you still have a massive percentage of Republican voters who feel like that's the day I've got to do it. I've got to do it that day. Well, we're looking at a lot of things, a lot of impediments that just pop up all over the country in random places, but important places. In Pennsylvania, poll watchers being blocked on election morning, and then ballot counting machines going down in Cambria County, Pennsylvania, a Trump plus 37 district. I'm also hearing that Bucks County, which has been the center of Democrat voter suppression, that was, remember, last week in the Pennsylvania early vote, that was exactly where Democrats were trying to hustle Republicans out of line wearing fake voter protection badges. They were pretending to be local officials. And instead, they were Democrat operatives trying to tell people they should get out of line, that the line is closed, that there's nowhere else, you can't vote. And that's because you're seeing a lot of support for President Trump and Republicans in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And today, apparently, the lines have been utterly massive in Bucks County, Election Day lines. And if you have a relative in this situation, stay in line. Stay in line. They cannot turn you away. If you are in line before the polls close, they've got to take you. So stay in those lines all across the country, no matter where you are. When you get in line, cast that ballot and make sure you do. And of course, the RNC also, they've been Johnny on the spot with all sorts of things. I saw Laura Trump throughout this entire voting period, early voting as well, chairwoman of the RNC, co-chairwoman, has been taking these tips. They've got a tip line going. They've got pictures coming in. They're filing complaints. They're sending inquiries. They're getting answers. Occasionally, it's an innocent explanation. It's not actually a box of ballots. It was just some empty box. But the RNC is chasing it, to their credit. So that's an important piece of what's happening here. One other thing that perhaps you've heard on our news this hour, and that is the Capitol building, the United States Capitol building, the Capitol Visitor Center, had a very stinky, fuel-soaked visitor arrive today. A guy whose clothing was apparently soaked in flammable fuel tried to work his way through security at the Capitol Visitor Center. And the Capitol Police posted earlier, not too long ago, let me check the timestamp on this thing. It was 1:37 this afternoon that they posted this. Our officers just arrested a man who was stopped during our screening process at the Capitol Visitor Center. The man smelled like fuel, had a torch, and a flare gun. Now, when they say a torch, I'm wondering if they mean like a Bic lighter or, like a blowtorch like you might have for like creme brulee or something, like a cooking torch. I've got one of them for my smoker at home. When we make a smoked old fashioned, that's what we use. We use the torch. Or if you light up a cigar, it's a preferable way to do it than one of those little Bics where you're like holding the flame and waiting for the cigar to finally light. Yeah, so the guy was carrying all of the implements of a self-immolation. That's what it sounds like. They said the Capitol Visitor Center is closed for tours for the day while we investigate. We will provide more information. That information came in the form of a report from Fox's Chad Pergram today. He says this: Fox is told that U.S. Capitol Police arrested a suspect at the screening center of the Capitol Visitor Center around 12:30 this afternoon. This is via congressional security sources or those familiar with the investigation. His clothes reeked of fuel, and his clothes were wet. Capitol Police picked up on this immediately. I'm glad they did. What kind of detective work does that take? You can smell. Have you ever spilled a little gasoline on your hands? You're like, how am I going to get this smell off? It's like takes forever. The guy's clothes reeked of fuel. So through some excellent detective work, they said, this seems bad. No, all credit to the Capitol Police. I'm glad they caught this guy. They picked it up immediately. They arrested him. His clothes were removed immediately. They stripped him down. He had a blowtorch, a flare gun, and other flammable liquids with him, so he brought some backups, apparently. Fox is told he also wrote a 25-page manifesto, and he indicated that today he intended to deliver it to Congress. One senior source told Fox they were not certain if the suspect intended to self-immolate. Well, all of the evidence is there, right? It seems like that was kind of the game plan. Who else would he immolate? He was the one soaked in the fuel. He is described as being a white male in his late 20s. He drove all night from Michigan to the Capitol. There you go, a swing state component to this story. Fox is also told he had anti-government and anti-Israel statements in his manifesto. So there you go. There's your indicator. You're looking for your sign. The guy's an anti-Israel lunatic who wanted to set himself on fire at the United States Capitol building, which is consistent with other anti-Israel lunatics, including one who set himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy right here in D.C. Fox is told that the suspect appears to be acting alone and was not on the radar of the U.S. Capitol Police. And then there's this. I'm hearing today. That's me, Vince Colonnese. I'm hearing from a source that D.C. police are actually expecting anti-Israel protesters today, around 6 p.m. or perhaps later today, at Lafayette Square and or Howard University. Those are the two places that they're anticipating that they may be getting an anti-Israel showing today, Election Day. Now, Lafayette Square, as you know, is the front of the White House. Lafayette Square is right in front of the White House. So the effort will be to protest the Biden-Harris administration, presumably, today, Election Day. And Howard University is the site of Kamala Harris's election night party this evening. So an anti-Israel contingent, at least D.C. police at this hour, are expecting that to turn up today at one, if not both, of those locations. So there's some of the stories today. And one of the anti-Israel lunatics already tried to light himself on fire at the Capitol today. He wanted to get through security first, though. He wanted to do it by the books. Like, what was that guy think? I guess he's not thinking. That's one of the features of being insane. You attempt to go through security while being soaked with fuel and carrying a blowtorch. I can't even believe it. It's so stupid. It's unbelievable. To the phones we go, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Jen is calling in from Gainesville on line 1. Jen, you're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Hey, Vince, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Jen.
Happy Election Day. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes,
I've been
ma'am.
out here at a voting site in Prince William County since 4:45 this morning when I got here to set up all my stuff. And two things. One, I had a brand new mom came out to vote today, and she was so emotional about what this world was going to be like if Trump didn't win, that she would be leaving for her child, that she was literally in tears. Second thing, the sad party at the Blue Tent made a complaint on us because they didn't like that we were playing Trump's playlist and then listening to WMAL all day. So they made a complaint to our electoral board about us.
How about
They
that?
lost.
They didn't like you.
They
So you were
lost.
playing WMAL out loud
Yep, still
because
playing.
you
Still
wanted
playing.
you wanted people to be informed. You're still playing right now?
Yep.
Can they hear me?
Probably.
Well, hello, Democrats. Why are you so miserable about all of this? What do you have to be miserable about? You're in Virginia. I thought you had this thing locked up. What?
You should see my tent compared to theirs, and that would make all the sense in the world.
Yeah. So when you say that, what do you mean? There's a lot of people showing up at your tent and nobody's showing up at their pathetic showing?
Party all day long. We've got flags flying. We've got food. I've got my Keurig rolling. We've got music. Well, and then WMAL playing.
Yeah.
There's just a blue canopy with a table.
So if you had to pick the tent that you would say is joyful today, if that's the description you would use, which one would it be?
Red all day long.
Red. So it's not the Kamala campaign. They said that, and I believed them for a half second. I was like, maybe they're They're not joyful at all. In fact, they're yelling at you.
We've got our bags of Republican trash. We've got a 6-foot cutout of President Trump. So people have been taking selfies all day long with President Trump.
Yes, that's just amazing. Well, please give them our best, and I assume they can hear us now. Hang in there, guys. It gets better, especially if Trump wins tonight.
100%. Foot on the gas pedal till 7 p.m. when they shut down the votes.
I love it. Jen, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Stay in the fight. And thanks for broadcasting WMAL to all the great people out there. Is there anyone faker than Kamala Harris? Have you been watching the closing hours of her campaign, if you can even call it that? Where was that last night where she faked the door knock? Was that Pennsylvania? In one of the states, one of the swing states, Kamala Harris, and we think it was Pennsylvania, she was out there and she was talking to a couple on their front porch, and she told them to go back inside so that she could knock on their door and have them open it, and they could do it on camera. They had cameras everywhere. It's so completely phony. And today, she was pretending to make a phone call to a voter saying, oh, thanks for voting. Thank you for getting out there and voting. This is, let me see. I've got the audio here for you. It's unbelievable. Here she is. Take a listen. This is Kamala Harris allegedly speaking with a voter, but I'll tell you why it's not believable at all.
How you doing? Have you voted already?
Give me a second.
You did? Thank you.
She holds the phone up to show the crowd that this woman said this, but what she shows the crowd is her camera app is open. There's nobody on the phone. It's the camera app that she points to the crowd, and then she sticks the phone back up to her ear.
Thank you so very much. You know, it's so important that everybody participates, and I thank you, because I'm sure you got a lot of other things you could be doing. Taking the time to vote really does make a difference. So thank you for that.
So what's the deal? She's on a cell phone. Is that her cell phone? Do people just call her and they said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm voting right now? How does that work exactly? Did she just call some random person? There's a lot of mystery here. She's the camera app is open. It's not clear at all that there's anybody even on the phone. And I don't even see, when you're on the phone, there's usually a little icon right at the top. Say you switch apps. I don't even see the icon flashing. I think she just faked this whole thing. Seems likely, given her entire history. Coming up on this here program, we'll be joined by Chris Bedford with The Blaze. David Strom is ahead. Also, in Nevada today, there's a bit of a problem with the vote. It's not like Nevada's an important state or anything. There's a bit of a problem with the vote. It turns out signature matching isn't going well. What? We're still doing that? You have handwriting experts in Nevada? Why are they signature matching? I'll explain. That's ahead.